Lei è Frances Haugen, è un ingegnere informatico, ha lavorato per Facebook e ad aprile 2021 ha deciso di consegnare 22.000 pagine di documenti interni al Wall Street Journal. Dentro ci sono tutti i segreti del social creato da Mark Zuckerberg. Si parla di danni alla salute mentale degli adolescenti e influenza degli algoritmi sulla politica. Questa è la sua intervista per Fanpage. Partirei dal 2019. Vieni assunta a Facebook. Com'era il tuo lavoro? Quali erano le tue responsabilità?
I started working at Facebook initially on something called civic misinformation, where civic misinformation differed from the main misinformation team in that it focused on all places in the world where there was not third-party fact-checking. Soon after I joined, I realized I was in way over my head. Like, I thought I had joined to work on preparing Facebook for the United States 2020 election. And I came in and I realized that Facebook was the internet for, billions of people around the world.
Quando è stato il momento in cui tu hai realizzato che dovevi parlare, che hai detto ok, questo è troppo, devo raccontare cosa sta succedendo nel dietro le quinte di Facebook?
In the winter of 2020, this is like maybe a month after the United States 2020 election, they called us all together on a Zoom meeting, and they said that the civic integrity team, the part of Facebook that was responsible for making sure Facebook was a positive force in the world, was so important that we were going to be integrated into the rest of the company, which I knew really meant they were dissolving our team. At that moment, I realized Facebook was not going to be able to heal itself internally without help from the public, without help from civil society. That was the moment I realized I was going to have to do something because Facebook had given up trying to get better.
Come è cambiata la tua vita quando sei diventata una whistleblower?
Well, my original goal was pretty simple. It was I wanted to not be responsible for holding secrets that I thought endangered other people's lives. And so I'd say the most important thing that changed was I could sleep at night.
Facciamo un passo indietro. Ti ricordi quando è che hai aperto il tuo primo profilo Facebook?
It would probably be in 2005 or 2006. So I was in college. So Facebook launched in 2004, but only to the Ivy League. And they expanded out soon after to another tier of schools. And I was cross-enrolled from my college, which is called Olin College of Engineering in Massachusetts, to Wellesley College, which is maybe a 5-minute drive away. For a couple of years, it said I went to Wellesley. Because that was the email address that allowed me to sign up for Facebook.
Entriamo nel dietro le quinte di Facebook. Cos'è che non funziona nel social network?
I'll give you an example. It's really simple. So I got interviewed by a journalist in Los Angeles who had a new baby. And because he's a modern father, he made an Instagram account for this baby. This baby account only had maybe 5 or 6 friends who were also other babies that the family knew. The only things the father ever put comments on, clicked on, thumbed up, liked were happy, cute babies. And yet, 10% of his feed was suffering children. So this is mangled kids who've had accidents, kids dying of cancer in the hospital, kids who have painful looking deformities. And he's like, Frances, how did we get from cute, healthy, happy babies to kids suffering? And the reality is the way a certain amount of his feed was getting brought to him was using something called a recommendation algorithm. That father was lucky in that he's an adult. But if you were a child, if you're 14 years old and you're on Instagram and you're starting to, your body's changing, you're kind of worried about your weight, you can be taken from content about healthy recipes to content that's promoting eating disorders in a very short amount of time.
A volte non ce ne rendiamo conto, però i social non sono solo un problema di privacy. Mi viene da pensare per esempio alla disinformazione durante il coronavirus o all'impatto che ha avuto per le minoranze Rohingya in Myanmar.
If you and I sat down for 3 weeks, I could teach you enough computer programming that you could ask real questions of accountability about Google. Like, what kinds of things is Google showing? What kinds of things are they not showing? If we wanted to do that similar basic accountability 101 on say, Instagram, we would have to recruit 20,000 volunteers, convince them to put software on their phones that let us see what they were seeing on Instagram. So you mentioned Myanmar. So when the ethnic violence was happening in Myanmar, so this is an incident where It's not my opinion that a genocide was actively fanned by Facebook. The UN issued a 200, 300-page report describing the negligence Facebook committed that led to the death of tens of thousands of people. When that was going on, there was only one Burmese speaker, so that's the language spoken in Myanmar, in the entire company, right? No one in the world knew what was going on there except for the people on the ground in Myanmar. And Facebook didn't even take seriously having channels to get that feedback loop, to be able to know things were going wrong. Because when they tried to tell Facebook, they came up against a brick wall.
Cosa ne pensi di Mark Zuckerberg e se ci hai mai parlato?
I've never gone to speak to him, though I really want to. And if I got to, I think the thing that I would tell him is that I think he is very smart and incredibly capable, and that if he were to go out into the world, if he's willing to let go of running social media, have a second chapter in his life. Mark Zuckerberg, I think, is trapped right now. He's worked on Facebook since he was 19 years old. I think it's time for Mark to go explore new opportunities and use his immense talents to do something constructive. I will not stop fighting until he reaches his full potential.
Passiamo a un altro social. TikTok è stato bannato da diversi dispositivi governativi, non solo negli Stati Uniti. Ora, tu non hai lavorato per TikTok, ma secondo te ha gli stessi problemi di Facebook e in generale cosa ne pensi di questi ban?
There's been a series of scandals around how TikTok controls what you get to see. So, for example, a few years ago, there's a scandal around if you were visibly disabled, TikTok would keep you from going viral. And they said that was to protect people from being bullied. I don't think that's why. And more people are getting their news from TikTok, especially people under the age of 35. If China were to invade, say, Taiwan, do you think we would get to see pro-Taiwanese content on TikTok? I'm guessing no.
C'è anche un altro social che sta facendo parlare di sé, si chiamava prima Twitter, ora si chiama X. Ecco, cosa ne pensi dopo che è stato acquistato da Elon Musk?
I'm very concerned about Twitter, or X as you call it now, because Elon fired a huge fraction of the company and then a lot more people after that quit. I don't feel like Elon recognizes the power that he has or what responsibility comes along with that. And the second thing that I think is probably even more harmful is that he's demonstrated that you can deprioritize safety and there's no consequences.
Cosa ti spaventa di più dell'intelligenza artificiale?
So we're seeing a lot of the same patterns repeat in artificial intelligence, AI, that we saw with social media. So these systems are also opaque, right? We can't see how they operate. We don't get to see how they work in aggregate. We don't know what choices are being made, what we're being allowed to see or not see. The second thing is we don't have to, the concerns about one day the AI will wake up, or, Skynet will happen and Terminator will become true. Like, those are, at best, decades down the road. The first huge consequences of AI are all going to play out across social media.
Prima ingegnere, poi whistleblower, attivista e autrice del dovere di scegliere. Qual è la prossima mossa?
We are building a nonprofit, a foundation called Beyond the Screen, that is focused on what we call capacity building across the ecosystem of accountability. So journalists are part of the ecosystem of accountability. Working with lawyers, working with investors, working with legislative aides, working with parents groups. And I'm very excited to announce new things in the coming months and years.